I'm here with Singmilla today to talk about the conflict in Naga. So thank you for joining us today, Singmilla.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for having me.
So let's just start off if you could tell us a little bit about the background of the Naga conflict.
So the Naga conflict began when the British colonialism started in India and Burma. When the British came to colonize India and Burma for their trade purposes, the Nagas are located in between India and Burma, and in order for them to pass through, for the easier passage towards Burma from India, they wanted to occupy the land of the Nagas.
Okay.
So the Nagas resisted the British invasion, but since the Naga forefathers did not have any equipments or instruments to fight back with the British, they sort of gave up in 1830s. That's when the British began invading the land of the Nagas.
The 1830s.
Yeah. So when they invaded the land of the Nagas, they didn't sort of occupy all the land of the Nagas, though they were present in some pockets of the land of the Nagas. So moving forward from there, when there was an uproar for the British to leave India and Burma, the Nagas
Which was when? I'm sorry. 15.
It was in it began in 1830s and 40s.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the Nagas started fearing of their fate, where they would be. So they went to the British and said, when you leave India or Burma, we do not want to be either a part of India and Burma. We want to exist as an independent nation that we were before. So there were negotiations that were taking place with the British, but British, I think they were sort of occupied with the situation that was going on, the uproar and the protest that was taking place in India or in Burma.
Mm-hmm.
So before they could decide, on the fate of the Nagas, British just left. So, but Nagas declared their independence on August 14, 1947, before the independence declaration of the India and Burma from the British.
Okay.
So when they declared their independence, they submitted a memorandum to the UN, to the Indian government, and I think even to the British, to the Burma, but it was still recognized. Yeah, and then the Indian government got to know about this independence declaration, and they said it was a misguided declaration by a few of the leaders of the Nagas. So the Nagas conducted a plebiscite to see whether it was according to the few misguided leaders or it was the opinion of the people. So the population, 99.9% voted for independence. So they submitted that plebiscite to the Indian government, saying it's the population of the Nagas that want to be independent, So when all such non-violent civil resistance movement were going on in the homeland of the Nagas, suddenly the plebiscite was conducted in 1951, and by 1956, Indians sent 100,000 military troops to the land of the Nagas, and they came to occupy. So then, after the occupation, all the borders were sealed, and the region was filled with the military. And in the Indian Parliament, there was an act called Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which was passed. And under that legislation, the Nagas' homeland was basically ruled with the power of the military.
Okay.
Yeah, so fast forward from there. So from 1950s till 1997, there was military occupation in the region. So under that rule, there was structural violence, a lot of human rights violation took place.
Okay. So what's been going on since 1997?
There was the ceasefire agreement that happened in 1997.
Okay.
So since then, there has been a peace talks that has been taking place.
But nothing's really come out of them, or?
Yeah, the talks has been going on for more than 15 years now, but we are not able to see any concrete solutions as such.
Okay.
Both sides are negotiating for now.
And is the Naga still split between India and Burma? Okay.
So the problem is the Nagas from 1950s to 70s, the land and population of the Nagas got divided between 4 states in India. Basically, they were divided and merged with the other states, populate people and the land.
Okay.
It was sort of for the easier administration and occupation.
Mm.
Yeah, and the eastern Nagaland went towards Burma.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was when the military junta persecution was taking place.
Right.
The eastern Nagaland was at the same time occupied by the military junta.
Is there still, do the Nagas people of India and Burma still feel unified as Nagas people?
Yeah, they want to be
Be
unified.
unified.
They want to be unified in their countries and in terms of their population and the people, because they all are the same. It's like a family that were separated and divided in their land.
Right. So you say peace talks have been going on for 15 years now. In your opinion, what do you think should be done to resolve this conflict?
I think the talks has been going on back and forth, but according to my opinion, there is a power asymmetry in between the two parties where the talks are taking place. So I think it's hard to resolve when there's a power asymmetry and imbalance in the talks that are taking place, and I feel like
Meaning that India is very powerful?
yes, and I should say that the Nagas are a much smaller nation.
What's the population? Do you know?
They are 4.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there is a power imbalance, I think we need to equalize that power.
Okay.
And if the talks are transparent enough, and if there is trust and accountability from both sides, then I think it could have progressed much more. But even if the promises are made, I think it's not really getting implemented.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that the international community has a role to play, or should this stay an internal matter?
Since the conflict has been going on for 8 decades and the sufferings of the people, I think, has been enough. So maybe it's time for the international community to play a role, to act as a third party intervention. And I think it's needed in order to ensure trust, accountability, and transparency, and removal of the fear from both sides.
Okay.
Yeah, so that might help in resolving the dispute.
Is the conflict in Burma affecting this at all, or?
The recent changes in Burma, where the democratic movement is taking place, it's going to help a bit.
It is?
Yeah, it is, but it hasn't been to the greatest extent, because still the military there itself still has a lot of power.
Okay.
The democratic government hasn't gained that much power as it should.
Thank you for providing a background for us. What made you come to SCAR?
I was into social work background, and then I was doing a study on how the Naga-India conflict has had an impact on the lives of the Naga women. So in 2006, I went to the Naga homeland, where there has been intense conflict in the past, where there were lots of human rights violations took place. So I went to such regions, and I looked out for the rape victims, the widows, and the mothers who lost their children in the conflict, and women who joined movement to become a part of the nationalist struggle, to overthrow the oppression and injustice.
Okay.
So when I met all the women and interviewed during the data collection, the kind of stories that they shared with me, and the kind of struggles that they have been through, it was a turning point for me, a kind of calling that I should be in this field. And
So you went there prior to coming to SCAR?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Prior to coming to SCAR, I wasn't thinking of I didn't have a clue of SCAR at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was more of talking to the women, and most of them they told me PR voice,
Oh,
we have
okay.
suffered to the greatest extent, but the world do not know about us, and you are having the opportunity to do so. And I got to meet women who lost their arms in the conflict, and some of the survivors of the rape, and there was the women who gave birth in concentration camps.
Okay.
So all of their life stories had a deep impact in me, and I didn't know at the time what to do. So I
Right.
started looking out for ways on how do I go about pursuing further studies in this field. So that's how I came to know SCAR, and I got through a Fulbright. So that's how I came to
Okay.
the school here.
Oh wow. So were you meeting specifically with women's groups or anyone there?
Yeah, since then I've been trying to write and speak about the Naga women's
Naga
involvement,
women's.
yeah, and the leadership.
Especially women's.
Yeah, women
Okay.
and the youths in the conflict.
So how have you made these voices heard?
Basically, I write about them or speak in conference and meetings.
Okay.
And actually, Naga Women's Group were the first group in South Asia to sit at peace negotiation table with men.
Oh.
But since they are the local grassroots women, not many people know about it. But in Washington, some of the women's organizations, they know bits and pieces and they wanted to know more. So I've been going to their meetings and I spoke about them. Yeah, their initiatives and their roles in peace building and conflict resolving.
So, how have your studies at SCAR helped you understand this conflict more?
My studies at SCAR, it helped me gain a lot of theoretical understandings on how the conflict gets played out on the ground.
Okay.
And before I was fixated only in the conflicts that were taking place in the region, but coming here I got to see the conflicts that are happening across the world.
Okay.
And it made me gain a more wider understanding of why the conflict happens and how it happens and how it can be resolved in a better way. So in a way it helped me gain diverse views and perspectives.
A wider perspective.
Yeah.
Wow. So what are your hopes for the Naga people in this conflict overall?
I think it would be very good if the conflict could be resolved because it's been going on for 8 decades. So if both sides could come together with trust, with honesty and sincerity in the talks, I feel that there could be an answer to it.
Okay.
So let's hope that both sides would come to a stage where they could trust each other again and where the power imbalance will be done away with it and they could honestly come to the table and find concrete solutions according to the wishes and desires of the people where the talks are taking place.
So thank you so much, Singmilla, for telling us more about this conflict today and giving us some background. I look forward to seeing what you do in the future.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you.